Earning a lot of income isn't a shoe-in to becoming wealthy. So today I want to talk to Ireland's high earners and give you an idea of the step-by-step process you might apply to turn rich into wealthy. Step one. Step one is about dealing with emergencies. Step one is saying, if you're earning a lot of income, you should have at least 6 months, if not 12 months income, lifestyle cost, set aside in some local financial institution with easy access, or indeed some new, one of the neo financial institutions, which by their definition have easy access. And this is not an investment decision, guys. This is a practical decision, because even if you chase down the best rates possible on, easy access deposit style funds, be they neobanks, be they money markets, be they standard deposits in pillar banks, tracking down even the best of those isn't not going to give you the best return possible. It's simply not, because cash out of the 4 major investment classes is the worst performer. So this is not an investment decision. This is a practical decision. What happens if the wheels fall off? What happens if you get sick and you don't earn income for 6 months? What happens if you get sick and you have a large doctor's bill? What happens if one of your children falls off their bike and it needs medical attention pretty rapidly? So the first step in the process of turning rich into wealthy has nothing to do with returns. It is to do with easy access. There's no point in having wealth or having any sort of decent income without being able to put your hands on a decent amount of money when you need to. So your emergency fund, 6 to 12 months of your lifestyle income in a local institution or in an online institution that allows you easy access. Once you have that copper fastened, the next step, step 2 in the process, is to repay bad debt or expensive debt. Now, in various publications and on various videos, I've defined that there's a big difference, that debt itself is neither bad nor good. It's what the debt is being put to, the job that's being delivered by the debt, that defines whether it's bad or good. Bad debt, in my world, is debt that makes you poorer. Debt that simply increases the price of stuff. So whether that's car loans, whether it's outstanding credit card balances, whether it's short-term hire purchase agreements, these are bad debts in my world, in my view, because all they're doing is increasing the cost of the item. So get rid of these debts quickly. Think of it in credit card terms. Broadly speaking, credit card debt it has an interest rate on it of somewhere between 12 and 20%. That means if you've 10 grand on a credit card, and we'll ski off the top of the mountain here, we'll look at the highest rate. That means that you're paying 2,000 a year just to service the debt. You're not paying back any money. In 5 years, you've given them back the 10 grand and you still owe them 10 grand. So getting rid of expensive or bad debt is next thing on your agenda. Number 3, you've now set aside your emergency fund, you've got rid of your bad debt. What's the next step? And the next step is to look to start to save money, start to accumulate money. Becoming well off is nothing to do with how much you earn and has everything to do with how much you keep. Irish people in general are pretty good at earning money, but pretty bad at keeping it. And what allows you to keep it, in particular, and it won't surprise regular listeners to hear me say this, the most effective tool that allows you keep money you earn without paying tax on it is your retirement fund. Whether that's a PRSA, whether that's a personal pension, whether that's an occupational pension scheme, the type of retirement fund best suited to you depends on your circumstances, depends on your occupation, depends on how you earn your money. But what they all offer across the board is tax relief on the way in and tax exemption as you accumulate wealth. So let's put that into perspective. If you're a top-rate Irish taxpayer at 40%, every €100 you put into your retirement fund costs you €60. Now, if I was to not rock up to your front door and offer to sell you €100 for €60, as long as you didn't think I was mad or it was fake currency, you'd be biting my arm off to get that deal. And that's the deal available to you in your retirement fund. For every €100 on wealth you set aside, it costs you 60. Now that number doesn't include the growth you might get on the 100 between now and the time you dip your hand back in the cookie jar and spend the money. But it does mean, broadly speaking, a 66% return in a day. For a cost of 60, you get wealth accumulated of 100. So retirement funds. Now there is a price to pay, as you've heard me say before, and the price to pay for all the benefits is that you don't spend the money on sausages in the Spar shop next Tuesday. You don't take your kids to Disneyland with it next springtime. This is about accumulating wealth. This isn't about enhancing lifestyle. But if accumulating wealth is your target, then the retirement fund, whichever type of retirement fund it is, depending on your circumstances, depending on how you earn your money and so on, is the next step in the process. So, let's imagine you've set up your emergency fund, you've repaid the bad debt or accelerated it, you've maximised your pension contribution depending on, and they will be, different allowances for different types of employment and different types of retirement fund, but you still have surplus money to try and accumulate wealth. This is where you look at the other tax breaks available in Ireland, of which there are many. Couple we've talked about before, EIS, Employment Investment Incentive Scheme. Now, I'm not here to tell you that EIS is for everybody. I'm not here to tell you that EIS are risk-free, because they're definitely not. But what I am here to tell you is they're extremely tax efficient. At the maximum, EIS funds into which you can invest between €20,000 and €1 million in a year, depending on how much you have available. You can invest that and get somewhere between 35 and 50% of that investment back immediately as a tax break. So they again allow you, in the skiing down the mountain, taking the top rate, it allows you to, at a cost of 500 quid or 5,000 quid or 50,000 quid, to have an investment of 1,000 quid or 10,000 quid or 100,000 quid in those same examples. Sure, startup relief for entrepreneurs, a way of you starting your own business and claiming back up to 6 years of taxes you paid as a PAYE worker. So they're only 2 examples, but there are tens of examples I could give you that tell you that there are many, many legitimate ways. And you probably have heard me say this before, but it bears repeating. I'm not the only one in Ireland saying we overpay taxation. The revenue say it. The last report I'm aware of that they gave to the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, told the PAC that Irish taxpayers routinely fail to claim 400 million a year in tax breaks we are due. Whether that's EIS, whether it's capital allowances on property expenditure, whether it's SURE or any of the other tax breaks I've mentioned. And if you haven't heard them, check out other videos in the past. But these are ways of you accumulating wealth without paying the normal taxes. And if you can do that, accumulating wealth without paying the normal taxes, then you're just going to accumulate wealth quicker, aren't you? So, you've set up your emergency fund, you've repaid your bad debt, you've used your maximum retirement allowances, and you've used as many of the other tax breaks that are available to you and that you can stomach from a risk point of view. What else? What's the next step? Step 5, and I'm talking particularly to Ireland's high earners in the big tech, big pharma and big industries out there, because many of you whom I talk to regularly on consults tell me about RSUs. This is a way of being remunerated through restricted share units. And what that allows you to do is get units, shares in the company in which you're working, and generally speaking, have an ability to divest yourself of those shares within a fixed period of time, called the vesting period. Now, what I want you to understand, if you're an RSU recipient, is that investing in your company is riskier for you than it is for me. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that, let's say you're an employee of Google. Let's say you're getting RSUs worth 50,000 a year. If I was investing 50,000 a year in Google, I would be taking less risk because my salary doesn't come from Google. My bonuses don't come from Google. My pension contributions don't come from Google, whereas yours do. So I'm not suggesting, this is not a comment on Google as a share ownership. It's simply a comment on risk. If you continue to hold all the RSUs you are given, you are incorporating more risk into your financial world than I would be if I held the same value in the same shares. So one of the key lessons of wealth accumulation is that you specialize to make money and you diversify to keep money. If you think about it, think about the richest people in the world. Think about Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs when he was around. These guys all became the richest people in the world through specialization, didn't they? Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. Yes, but they maintained wealth by diversification, by buying property, by buying art, by buying other assets. You specialize to make money, and your RSUs may well make you a lot of money, and you diversify to keep it. You recognize the risk you're taking, you diversify into other assets, and you lower the overall risk that your portfolio is exposed to. So, RSUs, as I said, in particular in step 5, talking to those of you who are in the way of RSUs. For those of you who aren't in the way of RSUs, your step 5, or in this case our step 6, is about diversity in all assets. Again, the message, you specialize to make money, you diversify to keep it. Over time, as you build wealth, the assets that accumulate the wealth, the growth assets, should not necessarily be the same assets that help you to keep the wealth once you've created it. Because growth assets are quite volatile, generally speaking. If you invest in a Google share, you invest in a FTSE 100, you invest in the MSCI World Index, you will experience volatility. You will experience times of high growth, you will experience times of high losses, and you'll experience times of the doldrums, neither high no growth nor high losses. That is the nature of growth assets. They are volatile. And while volatility is fine as you accumulate assets, it's not fine when you go to spend them. Because if you're unlucky enough to draw out your income every time there's been a fall in value in those assets, then even drawing out a small amount of income can erode a very large amount of capital over a relatively short period of time. So diversifying, out of RSUs for those of you with them, diversifying out of growth assets over time for those of you without RSUs is just as important. Step 6, diversify to keep money. Step 7, renew and rebalance. Review, and rebalance. So, what do I mean here? What I mean is that whatever stock portfolio, whatever asset portfolio you've put together or you've put together with your advisors today, that needs to be reviewed on a regular basis. If only because part of those assets will grow at a faster rate than other parts. So think of it this way. Let's say, and we're just talking about a nice round number, 100 grand. You have 100 grand today and you have 50% of it in an equity portfolio and 50% of it in money markets. The equity portfolio is delivering 6 to 7 to 8% a year. The money markets is delivering 2%, 3% a year. So next year, even though you started this day, this year at a 50-50, 50% equities, 50% money markets, next year it'll be somewhere around 65-35. The following year it'll be somewhere around 70-30. The following year it'll be 75-25. Because the equity portfolio is growing at a faster rate than the money markets portfolio. So if 50-50, and I'm not telling you 50-50 is for you, that will be for you to decide with your professional planners. But if 50-50 was for you, in my example, 1 year later, it's no longer 50-50. 1 year after that, the gap has even grown even further. So if 50-50 is for you, every year in that example, you need to rebalance. You need to take some profit off the table on your growth assets and put it into the money market assets in my example, so that you rebalance to 50-50, because that's what you have thought and your fund managers and your advisors have thought is the right mix for you. So reviewing and rebalancing is just as important. I suppose the point I'd like to make is that no financial plan is forever. A financial plan of any kind is a living and breathing exercise. Things will change. I'm not a clairvoyant. I don't have a working crystal ball, but I'm pretty confident tomorrow will be different than today. Because change is the constant, isn't it? What we can depend on is the future will be different than today. Portfolios will grow massively in value, will fall massively in value in short terms. That's different. Your own circumstances will change. Your salary will go up. Your salary will stay the same and inflation will erode it. Maybe your salary will go down. Things change. You'll have children or not. You'll have grandchildren or not. Your children will go to college and cost you a small fortune or not. Things are constantly changing. So reviewing, renewing and rebalancing is not only important from the investment point of view, as I hope I've illustrated for you, but is also important from the personal environment point of view. And finally, step 8, protect. There is no point in you chasing financial freedom and going home. If I went home to my wife and said to her, we're going to be financially free when I'm 68. But that's only true if I live till I'm 68. That's only true if the income I have today continues till I'm 68. That's no promise at all. But there is a way for me to ensure that if I don't live to 68, that a lump sum is paid to my family, which brings them directly to the financial freedom target. There is another insurance policy that allows me to insure my income, whether that's income protection insurance or critical illness insurance or a mixture of the two. So I can go home to my wife and promise her that no matter what happens, whether I'm alive or dead, whether my income continues or not, the best result possible. The outcome I'm promising can be delivered. But I can only make that promise if I ensure. If I ensure that the income that's lost if I'm dead is put back into the family. If I'm sure that the income I've lost because I'm so sick that I can no longer work is put back into the family. If I can ensure that any loans I have are repaid on my death. So insurance as, a necessary evil. I sometimes say to people about insurance, you don't buy car insurance in the hope that you'll claim. You buy car insurance in the hope that you won't. And you buy income protection insurance and life insurance and debt protection on loans insurance in the hope that you won't. But you still buy it, just like you still buy the car insurance, because God forbid if there is a claim, you want it to have as little impact on your financial world as possible. So just like car insurance is a necessary evil, so is income protection insurance, so is life insurance, so is critical illness insurance. None of us want to think of the outcome that would enable a claim to be made. And most of us will get through our lives without, we won't get through without dying, but we might get through to financial freedom without dying. But we will get through to that financial freedom point without losing our income to illness, without dropping dead. But just in case, just like with the car insurance, we buy it just in case. You should buy income and health and life and health insurance just in case. So there's the 8 steps in a rather small nutshell. It would be remiss of me not to say to you that there's a bigger nutshell available from Ask About Wealth, and that's our masterclass. And you check out the links below and you will be able to see, could you benefit from the masterclass? Because I've given you the abridged version here. The masterclass will give you a step-by-step, a hand-holding as it were, so that you can deliver each of these steps. And ultimately produce for you, which is the ultimate aim, I think, of us all, produce for you the very best financial outcome your circumstances will allow. It only remains for me to say thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed already, thank you for subscribing later on. And for those of you who will have subscribed and will subscribe, keep a weather eye on this space, because we have some fabulous guests coming up in the future podcasts. And don't forget, probably one of the biggest events in the financial year is coming shortly. That's the budget in October 2025. Keep an eye on this space. We will bring as much of that budget to you as we can, and in particular we'll highlight where the budget allows you to save a little bit extra in tax if that's possible, and how therefore to bring financial freedom that much closer.